Hello, everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you hanging out with us today. Look, if you enjoy deep dives into mind-bending topics, do me a huge favor right off the bat. Hit that like button and definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really helps us out and lets us keep making these deep dives for you. All right, settle in, grab a coffee, because for the next 11 minutes, we are going on a totally unparalleled journey. We're going to drag your perception of reality from the absolute bottom of existence all the way to the top. We're traveling from the zeroth dimension, where you are literally nothing but a microscopic speck, all the way to the seventh dimension, a place so incredibly vast, so infinite, that the human brain quite literally shuts down trying to process it. We're going to visualize levels of reality that are completely invisible to your naked eye. So, are you ready to completely break your understanding of the universe? Let's get into it.
So what actually happens to your body in the zeroth dimension? Let's kick this off by falling all the way to the very bottom of reality. Imagine we forcefully squeeze your entire body down into 0D. What happens? Well, it's absolute terrifying claustrophobia. In this dimension, you have exactly 0 directions to move. If you try to look around, you can't, because depth, width, and height have completely vanished. You can't even turn around. Your blood has completely stopped flowing because your veins no longer have any physical volume to hold a liquid. You've been reduced to a single, infinitely small mathematical point. You might seemingly exist to yourself, but to the rest of the universe, you simply don't exist. There's no space to move, and honestly, the very concept of movement loses all meaning here. But hey, before we escalate the complexity and start climbing out of this terrifying 0D trap, we really need to ground ourselves. What exactly is a dimension? Actually, scratch all those sci-fi portals, magical realms, or alternate fantasy timelines you've seen in movies for a second. In the simplest, most scientific sense, a dimension is just an independent direction. It's a degree of freedom used to define an object's position. René Descartes, the brilliant 17th century philosopher and mathematician, gave us a beautifully convenient language for this through the coordinate system. Think of it like a GPS system for reality. In the 0th dimension, you have no coordinates. You're just stuck. But what happens when we add just 1 degree of freedom? Moving on to section 1, from 0 to 2 dimensions. Let's start climbing the ladder. First, we step up to the 1st dimension, where you're suddenly granted exactly 1 degree of freedom, length. You can move forward and you can move backward, but that's it. Imagine being a train stuck on a single, infinitely thin track. You can't step off. The concepts of up, down, left, or right simply do not exist in your vocabulary. If another 1D creature appears directly in front of you, you're stuck forever. Any obstacle is literally the end of your accessible universe. But let's stretch that 1D line at a 90-degree angle and enter the 2nd dimension, the flat plane. Now you have length and width. Your entire world is like a drawing on a piece of paper. Now, what's truly fascinating about a 2D world is how you would actually perceive it. Back in 1884, a mathematician named Edwin A. Abbott wrote this brilliant novella called Flatland, giving us a crucial rule of vision. He said a creature usually perceives the world through projections and cross-sections 1 dimension lower than itself. This means a 2D character looking at a drawn circle won't actually see a circle. To get this, just imagine putting your eye perfectly level with your desk and looking at a coin lying flat. You don't see a round shape, right? You just see a flat, horizontal line. In a 2D world, everything looks like line segments. To figure out if an object is a circle or a square, a 2D creature physically has to walk all the way around its perimeter. And you know, this brilliantly illustrates a really fascinating paradox. Let's say our flat 2D character draws a square house around itself. To anyone else in that flat 2D world, this character is absolutely perfectly safe. They've disappeared behind an impenetrable wall. But to a 3D observer looking from above, the illusion completely falls apart. Because we look down at that flat piece of paper, we see everything simultaneously. We see the walls of the house, and we see the character perfectly exposed inside it. We could literally just lower our 3D finger down onto the paper and touch the character without ever breaking the walls. To a flat being, that house is the ultimate fortress. But to a being from a higher dimension, it's basically just an open box. Keep this specific paradox in your mind because it is absolutely crucial to understanding everything that comes next. Section 2. our familiar 3D illusion. Let's pull our flat plane upward at another 90-degree angle.
Welcome to our cozy, familiar, three-dimensional world where depth finally appears. You can move up, down, left, right, forward, and backward. And you might be wondering, why exactly 3 spatial dimensions? Well, physicist Paul Ehrenfest demonstrated that if we added more spatial dimensions, the familiar laws of gravity would radically change. The delicate balance keeping the Earth orbiting the Sun would just collapse. Planetary orbits would become incredibly unstable, and even the fundamental structure of atoms would be mathematically impossible. 3 dimensions is the exact perfect incubator for our physics. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Our 3D vision is actually a complete illusion. Remember Abbott's rule of vision? We perceive the world 1 dimension lower than we exist. Your eyes don't actually receive a ready-made 3D hologram of the world. A completely flat 2D image falls onto your retina, and your brain frantically reconstructs the sensation of depth using shadows and perspective cues. Look at your computer monitor right now. You can't see what's physically behind the screen without walking around it. You can look at a heavy metal safe, but you cannot see the valuables hidden inside it. In our 3D world, we are trapped seeing only the outer shells of things. To see inside, we have to physically break the shape open.
Section 3, the 4th dimension, time. Let's shatter that limitation and step into a mysterious new coordinate. This coordinate is entirely independent of length, width, and height. In 1908, Hermann Minkowski proposed a revolutionary idea, viewing space and time as a single, unified structure. In the 4th dimension, time ceases to be this abstract flow that just sort of happens to us. Time becomes an actual, physical, geometric direction. To really grasp this, think of your perception of time like watching a film strip frame by frame. You are trapped in the now, watching the frames play out second by second. But a 4D being, they are like the film editor. They see the entire strip of the footage laid out on their timeline all at once. They see the beginning, the middle, and the end simultaneously. Just like we could look down into the 2D character square house, a 4D being looks down on our 3D world. They can see inside your locked safe. And because they can interact with different segments of time, they don't need to break the safe open to steal what's inside. They simply reach their hand back along the physical axis of time to yesterday when the safe was open and take it. To you, trapped in the present moment, the object would just magically vanish from a locked box. No way, right?
So, what exactly happens to your body in this 4D reality? You are no longer a human living life second by second. Because time is a physical direction, your body is permanently stretched along it. You are a giant, continuous, frozen space-time worm. At one end of this massive structure is the tiny baby being born in the hospital. Further along the worm's body, you see yourself walking to your first day of school. Keep going, and there you are, sitting right now, absorbing this explainer. And at the very end of the worm is an old person taking their quiet, final breath. In 4D, there is no past or future. There is no movement. There is only this giant, frozen monolith of your entire existence. To a 4th dimensional being, your life isn't a story unfolding over time. It's simply an object sitting on a table. Section 4, the 5D forest of choices. Let's see how this builds as we enter the 5th dimension. That 4D space-time worm we just looked at, that's just one rigidly fixed line. It's one destiny. But what could the next direction possibly be after time? The answer takes us from strict geometry straight into the realm of quantum possibility. This aligns perfectly with physicist Hugh Everett's famous many worlds interpretation. In 4D, you had one fate, but in 5D, we pull out the access of alternative outcomes. Every single time you make a choice, your timeline actually splits. In the 5th dimension, your temporal worm splits in two at the moment of every possible outcome. Then it splits again and again. Your single body turns into a colossal, infinitely branching fractal, a massive tree of probability. If you want a visual example, think of branching narrative video games like The Alters or Detroit Become Human, where every single decision creates a whole new path. The branch where you become a millionaire, the branch where you failed a crucial exam, the branch where you never existed at all, and the branch where you are watching this exact explainer right now, they all exist simultaneously.
A 5D being sees this entire fractal forest of your lives as one single object. You are an entire forest of all the people you could have possibly become. Section 5. 6D. Completely different physics. Let's push even further. Incredibly, even that infinite branching tree of alternate lives we just talked about is still constrained by the fundamental laws of our specific universe. So we're going to collapse your entire giant 5D tree of probabilities back into a single point. From that point, we pull out a brand new perpendicular axis. Welcome to the 6th dimension. Here, we step into the wild landscapes of string theory. We are no longer looking at different destinies for you within the same physics. We are looking at universes with entirely, radically different physical laws. To understand how extreme this is, consider that along this 60 axis, you find worlds where gravity is 1,000 times stronger, where stars instantly crush themselves into microscopic black holes. You find worlds where the speed of light is completely sluggish, or where atoms fundamentally lack the ability to bond together, meaning chemistry and life itself literally cannot exist. At this stage, your physical anatomy loses all meaning. A physical body requires stable chemistry and specific conditions. In the 6th dimension, nothing is left of your flesh and blood. You aren't a human, and you're no longer a branching time worm. You become pure abstract information, a mathematical structure linking the concept of your existence across all possible variants of physical laws.
Section 6, the ultimate 7D infinity. We are finally at the peak.
To reach our final destination, the 7th dimension, we have to take that entire infinite network of 60 universes, every single universe with every conceivable law of physics, and collapse it one last time into a single point. And here, we stop. The 7th dimension isn't just another physical axis you can point to. It's the ultimate mind-shattering threshold. It is the space of all logically possible realities. I want you to really let that sink in for a second. This space contains absolutely everything simultaneously. All possible variants of universes, all conceivable and inconceivable laws of physics, all timelines from the spark of creation to the absolute end of time. There's no action in the 7th dimension. Action requires change, and change requires familiar flowing time. Here, absolutely nothing is created, and nothing disappears, because everything that could logically exist is already permanently locked into the structure. It's an absolute, infinite, frozen map of everything. It is literally a library of every possible alphabet, forming every possible word, writing every possible story that could ever exist.
So the obvious question here is, why do we stop at 7? Well, the mathematics of advanced string theory actually do allow us to calculate an 8th, a 10th, and even an 11th dimension. But those higher dimensions represent microscopic, curled-up spaces, vibrating at the quantum level. Describing them in our macroscopic, everyday terms is just physically impossible. The real limiting factor here is our human brain. We evolved to dodge predators, hunt for food, and survive in a 3-dimensional world. We simply did not evolve to comprehend absolute mathematical infinity. At the 7th dimension, human logic and language basically just reach their absolute limit.
So, let's take a deep breath and come back down. Exhale. Look around your room right now. The walls are solid again. Your time is safely ticking forward, second by second. Everything inside a closed box remains a total mystery to you because you are safely tucked back inside your narrow, limited, but perfectly balanced 3D incubator. But knowing what you know now, I challenge you to look at those solid walls a little differently. What incredible, impossible realities are happening right now, just one-dimensional step away from your perception? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. Before your 4D temporal worm reaches its end, please don't forget to like this explainer and subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can explore even more of the universe together. Stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.